Hi, I am Alexis Polanco. I am the Director of HR for VK Knowlton Construction and Utilities, Inc.
That was good. Who did that whistle?
That was awesome. It's great.
You did that. Excellent. You done that.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reagan Miller. I am the Director of the Childcare and Early Learning Division at the Texas Workforce Commission.
But we can introduce and then start. Your name's and your title.
So I'll just say a little bit about myself. I am the proud recipient of one of the Governor's Commission for Women Awards back in 2008. So I was nominated by my agency in the category of management. So I love the Governor's Commission for Women and its recognition of women leaders across the state, and I'm just so honored to have received one. I am not an Olympian, in case you guys were wondering, unless you count parenting as an Olympic sport. Yes. How many of you are parents? Every day feels like a marathon, right? Especially when they're young. So it's a little bit about me. I'll hand it to our next speaker.
You want to? I usually can talk pretty loudly. Am I good? All right. My name is Sammi Morrill. I am happy and proud to serve as the Associate Vice Chancellor of Operations and Economic and Workforce Development for Alamo Colleges, the longest title ever. So I lead our economic and workforce development opportunities, our programs, our services. So you think about how we develop talent, how we seek talent out in our community to develop it, to upskill it, and then to match it to our employer partners within the region. Alamo Colleges is the largest education and training provider in this area, 77,000 enrollments this last fall, which was a record number for us. We have five colleges that are separately accredited and 7 education and training centers throughout the region. So we have a large reach going up to Kerrville here in New Braunfels. We have a center here as well to meet your needs. One of the biggest things we'll speak about today is how we do that through our portfolio of a Texas Workforce Commission grant dollars, because we do believe it's our responsibility to help you triage and find those resources so that you can leverage them. All right, happy to be here.
Hi. Yeah, clap. Do that. That's a good idea. Little bit more. Yeah.
We know each other, so that's why I hit him. So don't tell him he knows.
Good morning. I'm Mark Larson. I'm with Early Matters San Antonio. Our work is to make sure that every child from birth to age 5 has access to high quality early learning and care. We do that in 2 ways. One is that we are the lead convener, or the backbone, if you like that language, for early childhood in San Antonio, where we pull together probably about 50 to 60 different community serving agencies to develop and carry out a citywide plan to improve access, quality, and affordability. The other piece is that we work on policy. And in particular, we do that with the business community. We know that here in Texas, if something is good for business, the odds are much greater that we will take it on. And so this was born really to kind of the way that we talk about it is that we are here to make sure that we can empower the workforce of today, so make sure that kids have a place to be, and build the workforce of tomorrow. So recognizing that 90% of your brain development happens before you hit kindergarten, that this is the best way to build our workforce so that 20 years from now, you've got brilliant, creative, collaborative human beings to hire. Very good.
Reagan, if you can tell us a little bit about what you do at Texas Workforce Commission.
You bet. So you all met one of our commissioners this morning. I'm sure as small business owners, you are all very familiar with the work that we do in unemployment insurance. And if you weren't before, Commissioner Esparza mentioned a lot of the work that we do on employment and training. Both state-level programs, he mentioned the skills development program, but also through our 28 workforce solutions regions. But what most people don't know is that we are the lead agency in Texas administering a federal block grant for childcare, the Childcare Development Fund. We're unusual. Not many states place this child care program with their workforce agency. There are about 4 that do. But back when our agency was created in 1996, they also incorporated childcare, recognizing that childcare is the biggest barrier that people have to going to work in many, many cases. So we administer this federal block grant that really focuses primarily on providing financial assistance to eligible low-income families to help offset the cost of childcare. Sometimes you'll hear it called a childcare subsidy. We try to call it financial assistance or a 12-month scholarship. The grant also works to improve the quality of childcare. As you heard Mark just say, brain development happens when you're really young, and so it's really important that when you're thinking about where you want your child to go to childcare, that you're thinking about putting them in a quality program, a program that's really focused on great teacher-child interactions, that uses curriculum, planned curriculum, and is really helping kids get ready to go to school. We administer this grant that again provides childcare scholarships. And in order to qualify, you have to be low income. But the definition of low income is pretty broad. It's 85% of the state's median income, so it changes every year. And this year that means that for a family of three, it's 73,600-ish. And for a family of four, it's 87,700. So it's a fairly high income threshold. There are national studies that have looked at the number of families that are potentially eligible for these services, and those estimates think that about 30% of all kids are probably eligible. But this child care block grant only serves about 10% of all eligible families. In Texas, they estimate that we're serving about 9.5%, so right about at the national average. What that means is that there are a lot more people who might qualify for this financial assistance, but the block grant just isn't scaled large enough to serve everybody that's potentially eligible. So in Texas, if you think about all of the parents that are buying child care, we're only paying for like 12%, 15% of all of the parents. So most parents are private pay. We all know that child care is very expensive. Lots of people have applied for our subsidies, for our scholarships, and that's why we maintain a waiting list. So last fiscal year, we probably had on average 80,000 kids on the waiting list. Last year we served about 145,000 kids per day. Next year, we're looking at serving about 155,000 kids per day, but we're still gonna have thousands of families on the waiting list. In our Alamo regional office, there were probably around 5,400, 5,500 kids on average per month that had requested assistance. And unfortunately, again, with the resources that we have, we serve as many kids as we can, but we do have to maintain waiting lists. Parents can pick any provider that they want to pick as long as that provider is willing to do business with us. I think we have some child care providers in the room. So those providers have to agree to accepting our reimbursement, our payment rate. We have increased our payment rates significantly since fiscal year 20. They've probably gone up by over 50% since fiscal year 20. So we recognize that you need to pay a fair rate if you're paying for these services. And recently, the legislature enacted some new requirements that all of the programs that accept our referrals be high-quality programs. So we have a certification called Texas Rising Star, and that is an indication that these child care providers meet higher levels of quality. If your families don't meet that income eligibility level, we still have some resources that can help them identify child care. So during the pandemic, we launched an online availability portal. It's find.childcare.texas.gov, and providers are listed there. They voluntarily can indicate how many available spaces they have. So if you're looking for an infant seat or a toddler seat, you can go in and search by zip code. And right now, it's voluntary reporting. Back in the pandemic, when we were administering some one-time federal stimulus funds, we actually required providers to input this information if they were getting money from us. Now that it's voluntary, we're not seeing that information is updated as frequently as possible, but we're hoping to work with them once we launch our new childcare website in December. txc3.info is our new website, and parents will actually be able to apply online for our child care assistance. Right now, each of our 28 regions has their own process for applying, but we're excited that in December, we'll have one system that all parents will be able to access. So that's a lot about how we help parents. I also want to mention that we help child care businesses. 97% of the people that direct in a child care center are women. It's primarily a women-owned and women-directed business. We've provided resources during the pandemic to help with business coaching and training. I think all of you know running a business is hard. There are lots of rules to owning a business. And most child care programs are opened by people for their love of children, not for the business acumen. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to do, was help provide some resources to those businesses to help them. We are currently actually in the process of doing a procurement. If you know anything about government, we have to competitively procure all of our money. So we're in the process of doing a procurement to identify new business coaching and training entities that can help those child care businesses. And we also are in the process of seeing how we can help you, other businesses who are interested in understanding and helping your employees with their child care needs. So this is a brand new initiative for us. We've had lots of employers who reached out to us or to one of our 28 regions and said, I think my employees need some help with child care. I want to figure out what I can do. And they don't really know where to start. And we didn't either, because we didn't have that level of expertise. So we are actually, right now, we have a grant on the street. The applications are due Friday, to identify entities that can provide technical assistance to businesses, just like you, businesses who are interested in understanding and figuring out, are there opportunities to meet the child care needs of our employees, and then potentially also looking at what might you do to create more family-friendly workplace policies to help support working families. This is called our Employer Child Care Solutions Initiative. And if you go to our website, the Texas Workforce Commission website, we already have a web page up. If you search for Employer Child Care Solutions, that website is up and running, and it says, coming soon, technical assistance providers. Once we get through with this procurement, we'll be able to list those technical assistance providers that are available. Employers will get to select the technical assistance entity that they'd like to work with, and then we'll sign some forms, and that technical assistance entity will then work directly with the employer. So this is a new initiative. We haven't done this before, but we're excited that this will be rolling out in early calendar year 2025. So let me stop there.
Dr. Morrill, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do at Alamo College District?
Sure. I'll narrow in on our business and industry solutions, so value add for our small businesses in the room. We have one whole team that their role is to engage, be the forward-facing account executive by sector for our business partners. So we're a large institution. When I said we have 77,000 enrollments, right? We have 5 colleges, 7 education and training centers. That's difficult for us to navigate ourselves. We don't expect, nor should we expect, that our employer partners know who to contact within each department or all the programs and services we have in order to serve them best. So over the last year, we have created a business and industry solutions team that has account executives by sector. Those account executives are your point person. They are the ones that, if you're looking for talent out of one of our programs, we can connect you with that talent, right? So maybe that's an entry level coming out. Maybe that is an apprentice. Maybe that's an intern. Maybe that's, we have a program called, we pay the intern for you for their experience, right? Maybe it's you need customized training. Maybe you need accelerated training for your small business, but we have one person to do that for you now on our team so that you know them by name, and they're helping navigate, project manage, and be with you throughout. Not a handoff, right? They're your point person. We also recently in that same team, we have leads and account executives for our Texas Workforce Commission portfolio. So you heard Skills Development Fund just earlier. We have an account executive for that, and we also have an account executive for Skills for Small Business. So Mario, raise your hand. Whoop, whoop. Do not leave without meeting Mario, because I'll tell you, Skills for Small Business is one of the best TWC grant dollars to utilize. We have industry partners, employer partners who have been with us for years because we've helped them build their talent, their training development plan for their employees as they come on board, because you get tuition dollars if you're eligible every single year. So if they're new, you're gonna test me right now, $1,800 for tuition. If they've been there over a year, it's $900, and it continues every year. We have a catalog that we put together every single year that it's plug and play, right? So we are scaling our small business efforts. I want you to know that we're here to serve you best in those efforts, because we want to build it. We want to get you the talent you need. We want you to be successful, and the only way to do that is to make sure that we're upskilling who you have, right? Meet any talent needs that you have. We also work with childcare providers, so there is set aside dollars on SSB, Skills for Small Business, specifically for childcare. So we partner with Workforce Solutions Alamo when they were doing their business operations business coaching, right, for childcare. And then together, right, so you're getting coaching, and then, okay, I'm going to get dollars to do training through SSB. It's really important. I think sometimes we assume that employers should know what to do and who to contact, and it's a mess of a lot of resources. I want to help you leverage those resources. Again, it can be another one that's big for us on businesses in this area in particular. Not only do we manage Skills Development Fund, but also Skills for Small Business. We manage the Adult Education and Literacy grant through TWC as well. So if you have employees that may need workplace literacy, which is English as a second language, right? In order to increase productivity and safety on site, we can customize that training. Within our business and industry team, we can customize any type of training that you need. So we work with a big portfolio for us right now is manufacturing. Whatever needs they tell us that they have, what we don't have on the shelf, we have a curriculum team in-house that sits down with the subject matter experts to build what you need in order to get that training. So I'll focus. That's one piece of our business, but I want you to know that we're here. We have a dedicated person for you to navigate the resources. I like to spend TWC's money. You need to leverage it. It's on the table every single year. So we can help you walk through that process and what needs you have. So just like I would triage a student that may come to one of our programs, we help triage our employer partners to see the talent gap, the talent needs, and then we create a solution for you.
Now, Mark, I have a question for you. So childcare can be a particular challenge for small business owners and employees alike. Too often, small businesses do not have the scale or infrastructure to help support childcare needs of their employees or potential employees. What are some things that these businesses could do to begin to take this on?
So I have a couple pieces you can act on. As Reagan's program comes online, there are a couple things where I could encourage you to go look. A number of years ago, the Miles Family Foundation up in Fort Worth created a program called Best Place for Working Parents, and this is there is a 3-minute. You can do it when one of the other people is talking, not while I'm talking. But there is a 3-minute questionnaire that you can do to see if your entity, if your company qualifies as a best place for working parents. And it's primarily a self-reporting about HR policies that are available. And if you get that, then you can put that badge on job postings and the outside of your door, like a blue plate award or whatever they're called for clean kitchens, that kind of thing. And so I would encourage you to go there to see if that is something that you can qualify for. The other thing related to that is whether you do or don't, they have a list of the top 10 policies that, HR policies that best promote employee retention and employee happiness, particularly for parents. There are, I think their number, they've done some work with Boston Consulting Group, Harvard, and SMU, maybe TCU. I shouldn't confuse those, but I do. But they, to identify that there are 80, like I think the number is 83% of millennials have indicated that they would switch jobs for a place that had better policies supporting working families. And so that's who we're all after right now. And so there are some specific policies you can say, okay, look, if I don't want to spend more money, what's the next one policy that we could take on to support working families? What's the one after that? And they have some options on there that range from low cost to lots of money. So that's one piece that I would recommend that you go to. Another thing that I would encourage you to consider is if you go to the portal finder that Reagan recommended, one of the things you can do on there is you can actually search for what are the childcare providers that are located near your place of business. So, and what you could do with that is we have some companies, albeit this is a much larger one, but there's a version of this that you could do, that you could approach them and say, can we get some dedicated slots for some of our employees so that they could either get access to childcare seats here. Potentially, there are some versions of that where you could say, look, we will cost share for employees. You don't have to cover all of it. You could cover a portion of it with families to share the cost. And then the one other version, we have the benefit of having, about the name drop here, we have the benefit of having Peter John Holt, who owns the Spurs and Caterpillar and all of that, on our board. And one of the things they did was like, look, we're struggling with childcare. Right down the street from us is Holly Hills Early Learning Center. And he went to visit them, and they were licensed. They were not TRS rated. And he said, can you become TRS rated? And they were like, look, we need these 4 things to take place. And he's like, well, how much money is that? And they were like, it's probably $40,000, but it might as well be $40 million because we don't have it. Childcare, if you are new to this, is a really, really rough business model. And they said, look, we don't have it. And he said, well, if you get that, if we could help you provide you the funding to get up to quality, which Workforce does provide a good chunk of money for that, but if that's still insufficient for what that child care provider needs, if we get you up to a level of Texas Rising Stars 3 or 4, can you hold it there? And then I can recommend that my employees can use you as a center. And they agreed to that. Now, that he happens to have $40,000. That doesn't need to be $40,000. There are smaller versions of that that could be $1,000, $5,000. There are smaller versions of that. What I would encourage you is to find a child care provider near to your place of business and get into conversation or get into relationship or in partnership with that child care provider. And then the last thing I would ask for is this. Those are, one of them you can do like, you know, at the next break. Don't do it when they're talking, but one of them you can do at the next break. One of them you can do in the next week. And then the last one I would ask for is this. Here in Texas, in most states, but in Texas additionally, we look to the child care industry to provide this solution, and we hope for it to be a public good. We need it to be there. It's got to be quality. We need it to be reliable so that people can keep working. But we don't fund it like it's a public good. We don't treat it like it's a public good. Reagan shared some of the subsidies, but we don't even fund it like we fund other things that need support. We actually have examples in America of an industry that's a rough business model that provides a public good that's privately owned, by and large, in farm subsidies. But we don't fund childcare at that level either. So we look to it as a public good, but we don't fund it like that. And Texas does have an opportunity to add funding to help reduce the wait list, to help advance quality, to provide better tools for families. But that will only happen when you all have a larger voice. So I would encourage you to you can find in many of your cities may have an early matters region where you are, might be here in New Braunfels, that we are in conversation, we're working with New Braunfels Chamber of Commerce. It might be wherever you are, you may have an early matters region. I encourage you to connect with them and get involved in advocacy, because the business voice carries great weight in Texas. And I cannot overstate that, and I encourage you to get involved in advocacy on behalf of high-quality childcare, because the reality is, right now, it's not on your books. I would like it to be. You are paying for the fact that we have an insufficiently funded childcare system. We've met with the CEO of Toyota North America, and he's like, I had to raise wages 7% this year instead of 3%. And a huge portion of that is because we didn't have access. So many of our employees struggle with access to childcare. They're not applying, or they have to leave, they can't take promotions, or they're not applying for promotions because of the challenges. And he's like, so we're already doing it. My request of him is, hey, on that extra 4% you had to do, can you label that the cost of an insufficient childcare system? Because when you do, you will keep taking action to rectify that, because we have an opportunity here in Texas to change what we want to do, particularly for our small, medium, and large businesses.
So all of these are great resources, but what can small businesses do to let their employees know about these resources and how they're available to them?
Well, for us, we'll come out and meet you one-on-one, right? So the resources, as I said, we have dedicated staff, account executives for you. We can meet to see what type of talent development you need, or what talent you may need coming in the door, right? So that we can match you with the services and the resources that we have across the district. Again, our role, and I'll echo the sentiment that small businesses are the backbone of Texas. We don't succeed unless you succeed. We must be building talent that meets your talent needs, and then once you get that talent, our role is to help you upskill that talent and to find the resources that we have in order to make that training at no cost or at low cost to you. We're always looking for consortiums too, so even if you have one employee that needs training, we have that ability to do that through Skills for Small Business. We have larger ones. We have an opportunity through Skills Development Fund as well. So I just want you to walk away with the fact that you have a partner in us for Alamo Colleges, that we have someone that we will dedicate to you and your business in order to navigate what we have in the portfolio, because it is too much for you to have to go through every single day. Let us do that work for you. Let us be the boots on the ground to connect and to be able to deliver that service directly to you.
I would just, yeah, great. I would send you, if there may be opportunities in your local city. In San Antonio, we have a very strong United Way related to childcare and Calling United Way. They have a number of grants for women who are going through extra school through Women United. But if your city doesn't have those, when you can look to Early Matters in some cases, if they exist in your city, that may be a resource. But really, I would send you back to Reagan's tools that she has now and that they are creating and improving at Texas Workforce Commission. For the Child Care Connection, engaging with your local workforce board, whatever that is, can be an amazing resource, but I would suggest, this isn't coming out of both sides of my mouth, what Texas Workforce Commission and your local workforce board is doing with the funds they have available is remarkable. And they can't do it with money they don't have. And so that's where we have an opportunity to do more in Texas, but I would encourage you to visit Texas Workforce Commission related to that.
And I'll just repeat, find.childcare.texas.gov. I want to mention one other online resource, and that's earlychildhood.texas.gov. That's a website that integrates early childhood programs from multiple state agencies, because childcare may not be the only thing that young families need help with. Early childhood intervention services, prevention and early intervention services, all of those things are contained on this website. When you have different entities operating different programs, it can be really hard for families to navigate. And so this website pulls all of that information together. We're in the process of creating a new eligibility screener that will be hosted on earlychildhood.texas.gov, so your families can go in and plug in their information, and it'll tell them you might be eligible for X, Y, and Z. Here's who you need to contact. So if it's childcare alone, find.childcare.texas.gov. And if you want to look at the broader array of early childhood, look for earlychildhood.texas.gov.
Great. So now we will open it up for questions.
Hi. I'm curious if you have the statistic of how many daycares went out of business during COVID. How many were there before COVID, and how many are there today? Because I think it got decimated.
So it actually, during the pandemic, it did. During the pandemic, we saw a drop in the number of child care programs, but that's been on the rebound. And so for a while, I think we fully rebounded now, and for a while, we didn't have as many programs, but we had more slots. Child care regulation actually has a website, and you can look for all this data. I think one of the areas, though, that has never really rebounded is home-based child care, and we've seen steady declines over the past decade in home-based child care. So you had a lot of folks previously who operated within their homes. They would serve maybe up to 12 children, and the number of those businesses just really has plummeted. We actually provide some funding to child care regulation, and they fund some navigator positions to help these home-based child care programs with all of the regulations. Child care is heavily regulated. So many regulations when you're taking care of young children and health and safety issues. So they actually have staff that help with this. And we are in the process of doing another grant for a family child care network. And so that's going to be a technical assistance entity that will work specifically with home-based child care programs to help them operate a stronger business. It's also going to have some funding for startup. So if you're interested in starting up a new home-based child care program, they'll actually administer funds to help seed, the development costs associated with home-based care.
She's right on all of that, and then I'm going to go a little bit chicken little here. So I hope I'm wrong. We heard about the child care cliff with the ARPA funding running out and kind of the massive amount of support. The average center during COVID got something in the order of over $200,000, which when that's not there, it's got to be supplanted somehow for them to kind of stay open. So when the child care cliff, which I wish it wasn't called that because we all expected the bad thing to happen the next day, and that's never how it was going to go. What was going to happen first is that when child care centers, which are still, I want to say this again, a fundamentally broken market. It costs way too much for parents. Right now it costs more for one child in child care than it costs to go to Texas A&M University San Antonio, right? And if you've got, in many cases, particularly if you have a second child, it's more than your mortgage. So it's like, hey, I'm going to have a second kid, so I'm going to buy a second house. That's fundamentally what's happening. It is not working. It's way too expensive for parents. The pay for childcare workers is far, far too low. In 2022, in San Antonio, it was $11.35 an hour. That was okay when Bill Miller's paid $12. It wasn't okay, but you know what I mean? When Bill Miller paid $12, but now Bill Miller or HEB pays $15, $19, and they have benefits. Early childcare doesn't. So people are leaving. And the childcare centers can't say, well, I'll just raise wages. Because what are they going to do, raise tuition? Well, they are. But then when you raise tuition, what do the parents do? They step out. And because their math doesn't work anymore. And now they leave the workforce. So now we go, oh, but the unemployment rate's still 3.8. Well, unemployment doesn't count the tens of thousands, or in Texas, hundreds of thousands of families who are not looking for work because they know they can't afford to work. So they've got a problem because that massive, massive number who could come into the workforce and could reduce wages that you have to pay are not looking because they can't afford to do it. So we're at a broken place here, and the centers are doing this. First, they had to raise tuition, which they're doing. Second, they have to shrink because somebody walks off the job, and every single center provider I talk to is like, I post jobs. I used to have 20 people come. Now I might have one. They might come, they sign up for the interview. Sometimes they don't show. They maybe do the interview. They don't show up for the first day of work. They show up for the first day of work. They don't come to the second. I can't hire them. I have to close a room. Every time a room has to close, 10 people, 10 families, more or less, have to stop working or find a solution elsewhere. This is not good. But what we don't really have great data on, because what we can do in licensing and with Reagan's work is we can track how many seats you are allowed to run, but that doesn't mean it's the same number that you are serving. So if you have to close a room, you might be certified for 100, you might be serving 60, but somebody leaves and now you're at 53. But as a state of Texas, we can't track that you just lost 7% of our seats. We can't see it right now because we don't collect data like that. So the first thing was raise tuition, happened. Second thing was shrink, that happened. The third thing is going to be close. So while she's right, it is largely rebounded. Unless some things fundamentally change, we are going to see probably an uptick in closures that won't make the news because it's going to be one center over here. The 35 families get thrown into a tizzy because their center closed, but it's just because somebody couldn't make payroll that day. But it happens very quietly. And then over here, somebody couldn't make their rent payment, and it happens very quietly. In some regard, this is not good politics, so if you're recording, take it down. But I kind of wish that the cliff had happened, because then the bad thing would have happened all at once, and we would take action on it. But it's going to happen very, very quietly, and you're going to see it by one employee or two employees who lose a seat because somebody had to shrink. And that's the bigger concern that I have looking forward.
We have a question over here.
Hi, my name is, that's loud. My name is Tim Kaminsky. I'm the president of the Texas Licensed Childcare Association. So back when the pandemic happened, prior to that, we had 18,000 licensed child care homes and centers in the state. By May of 2020, that dropped down to a little over 6,000. Currently, we are back up to around 14,000. But as he was saying, although we have the slots, licensed slots, that doesn't mean centers are operating at that capacity. Currently, it's about anywhere from 60 to 70% of what their actual capacity is, in some cases lower. It all comes down to the funding. So we're about to go into a new legislative session. Last time, we as the child care industry asked for a significant amount of money to help address the low wages and also to address the wait list. And that basically did not make it into the committee discussions. Back then, we were asking for $2.29 billion. So now that we're 2 years down the road, is there any estimates that y'all are aware of how much money the state would need to put into either TWC or another program to address the wait list to get those 86,000 parents back into the workforce. Because that's what's going to need to be asked of them in the session that's going to start in January. And anybody who's in the room here can go to your local representatives and ask them, why did they not address this last time? And if they don't address it this time, what's going to happen to your businesses when, as he says, we start to close one by one? So do y'all have an idea about the dollar monies we're actually talking about?
I actually do, and our executive director testified to this at a committee hearing last week, I think. In the first year of the biennium, $1 million pays for 106 kids, and in the second year of the biennium, $1 million pays for 103 kids. It goes down because the cost of childcare goes up each year. So right around a little over 100 is what $1 million will buy. Our waiting list is high. I always want to say a waiting list isn't an indication of need, it's an indication of people that have applied for childcare. If we serve everybody on the waiting list, I would assume we're going to get more on the waiting list because people find out, oh, it's available, and people apply. So, but Tim, to your answer, those are amounts that our executive director actually mentioned at a hearing last week. And I'm sorry, one more thing that I want to mention. Nationally, the Bipartisan Policy Center put together groups of states with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to talk about childcare. How do you bring the business community into the childcare discussion? We were a part of a Texas group that participated in that, and right now, Mark is with Early Matters San Antonio. Early Matters Texas is part of a group called the Employers for Childcare Task Force.
Yep.
You probably want to talk, but I think this is something that all of you could do a Google search for, because employers are basically the backbone of the Employers for Childcare Task Force. So I would encourage you to look that up. Mark, I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is the it's pretty straightforward. So this is a combination of Early Matters Texas, Texas 2036, Texas Restaurant Association, and Texas Association of Business came together to create the Employers for Childcare Task Force. Basically, if you say, look, I want to advocate, where do I go to have a voice, and how do I plug in? That's where you go. So thank you. I probably should have remembered that before. But I would encourage you to go look up Texas for Employers for Childcare Task Force. That's a great place for you to go, both either to learn more, you don't have to advocate immediately, either to learn more, find other people wrestling with this in a very real way, and if you feel ready and so inclined, to take action and advocate. Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's hear it for our first panel. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break, and then get back to your tables, and we will start the second panel.